alternate mountains, now is the time to do it. So I'm going to take our mountain background layer and I'm going to duplicate that. And I'm going to change that to mountain midground, because these are the mountains that are going to go in front of our back mountains, and create another layer. Now, as you can see, we've got basically the same thing. And the reason I'm doing this is so that we can have some parallaxing effect in our game. But even if it parallaxes nicely, with the colors being identical, it's just not going to be very good looking as they go by. So the first thing we're going to do is change up the color of this mountain a little bit. We're going to come down here to our create new fill or adjustment layer, and we're going to pick hue and saturation. And I'm going to green out the hue on that a little bit. Except, hang on a second, what have I done here? Okay, sorry about that. I made a mistake, and when I went to correct that mistake, I accidentally cut off my recording. So we're back, and I want to show you what happened. I created a hue saturation level layer down here, and not thinking that that's going to apply that globally to my thing. So we need to get rid of that. So we're going to trash can that. Close that out. Or you could just have taken the layer it was on and drug it to the trash can. And we're going to have our top layer selected, and we're actually going to come up to Image, Adjustments, Hue Saturation. And that's going to apply it to our front image here. So I'm going to green this up a little. Saturate it a little more. Darken it a little. There we go. I'm going to green it up quite a bit, actually. So I ended up with right around -40, +10, -15 if you want to use reasonably even numbers to work with. I'm going to click OK on that. So now we have two different layers. That's fine. So we're going to, and in fact I think I might take this layer and also come up, go to Edit, Transform. I'm going to flip that horizontally, just so it looks a little bit differently. Now, that flipping is why we didn't do any of our lighting already. So you want to have made your decisions about this and set everything the way you want it if you're going to create copies to create more artwork before you do the lighting. Otherwise your lighting's going to be backwards once you go in and flip it. We don't want that. Now we could also, since these are going to be midground mountains, we can hit Control T on this layer and we can reshape that a little bit. Bring those down maybe. And I might even come up and take my warp tool and just kind of round those out a little more. Just give it a little bit different shape. I'll hit Enter to go ahead and accept that. So now we do have to get that lighting done. So there's a couple ways we can do this. What I'm going to do is actually use our burn and our dodge tools to create this. This is a pretty good and effective way to do it. There is a problem with it. You need to, within a few strokes, decide whether or not you're happy with what's going on, because using the burn and dodge tool is destructive. It's not created on a separate layer, it's done on the layer you've got. So we want to be pretty sure about what we're doing. So we'll go ahead and do our first one. I'm going to lock the pixels on this layer just so we don't get any bleed anywhere. I'm going to make this brush fairly big. I have to cover this bottom area here and this big side area over here. I'm going to come down here to my dodge and burn tools, I'm going to start with burn, which is what we're on. Increase that brush. And then I'm just going to take it from this upper area here. And with this center point right here in the middle where the light would change, we want to make sure we're on the opposite side of that from where we decided our light was going to be. And I'm just going to pull this down. You can see it gets a little bit darker. Now you should note that I am using where it's defaults to, which is midtones. You can choose shadows, midtones, or highlights depending on what you're messing with. And for our snow, we might end up having to fiddle with that. Maybe not. We'll find out. I keep my exposure at about 1/3 because I'd rather make a few extra strokes than have it apply on just too dark all at once. So we're going to pull that down again, and we're going to keep stroking that like that. And then we're going to shrivel this brush down a bit and pull down some here. And if our light were coming down, some of this dip would be hidden by this mountain. Not too much, but a little. And then with the atmospheric depth that we talked about, aside from things looking lighter and lighter the further you go in the distance, it also has a habit of things looking lighter the closer they are to the sky. So down here we're going to increase our brush size. I'm just going to darken in our bottom a little bit here. Try and make it fairly even. So that's not bad. That's pretty good. Now we can make that pop a little bit more by coming over and switching over to our dodge tool, which is going to lighten everything. And we're just going to reflect where that sun will be hitting those mountains. We're just going to lighten that up. Try to use nice, even, quick strokes. You'll get a better result. So now we've added some depth to that. We can come over and we can turn off that layer. Select the layer behind it, and we're going to do exactly the same thing. I like to work with my layers locked just so nothing goes awry on me. But we'll come over and grab our burn tool, which is already pretty big. And that's okay because this one's going to light out a little bit differently because it's flipped. So most of the light's actually only going to be on this face. We're not going to get very much over here this time. So we'll take that. And I'm just going to go ahead and darken that bottom. And it'll darken better if you make sure, don't just wiggle back and forth. I'm actually doing a stroke here, and then picking up, unclicking, and then doing another stroke in the same direction. So click down, stroke, unclick, click down, stroke, unclick. And it's a little bit more control that way. Also you'll see, hopefully you can see on the recording, but you'll see on your own, if you didn't, why we didn't use that perfect white. Now we have that reflective blue coming out when we darken it. And that's awesome, because that's what snow actually does. It's going to reflect the atmosphere and our blue mountains around it. Give us that blue look. Now we can go over, switch over to our dodge tool, and we can start to lighten that. Not right up to the edge, because I kind of want to blend. Because that blend from the edge into the really light part and around is what's helping give it that depth. we're just going to get a little bit on this mountain here. Not too much. We can cheat it a little bit. And now we've got a nice looking mountain. So now we have to save out our files. So I like to work with targas. You can work with whatever you want in Unity that Unity accepts. You can do PSDs, PNGs. I like targas. It's a good all-around format for most game engines. So now that we have our top layer here turned off, we're going to go ahead with our sky and our background, and we're going to save that as a targa. So let's really want to show all of my hard drive to you guys. But let's, you can see I've got a bunch already in here. Let's make a new folder. We'll call this Class Textures. So we're going to call this one Mountain DG. You can save a Photoshop file of it if you want, just so you can come back and work on it some more if you like. In this case I'm not gonna, but I am gonna just save it out as a targa. And I'm going to do everything in 32 bits for this, just to make sure that we've got any transparencies. Now we don't really need it for this one. And if you want to save a little memory, you can save it at 24 bits. Now we've got that one saved, so now we need to bring in this one. We're going to turn off our other two layers so that we have this transparency. I'm going to save it as again, as targa again. Change it to mountain midground. And we will save that out. 32. And we've got our sky and our rear sets of mountains. So awesome. Now let's move on and create some of the more foreground items that we're going to use for our game, including our tiling ground, some grass, some rocks, and how to get away with making some trees even if you can't draw at all. See you in the next video. Alright guys, when I saved out my targas I screwed up a little bit, but I want you to see what I did so that if it happens to you, you'll understand what was going on. When I checked my targas and reopened them, my midground mountains didn't have their transparency. They just had a white background. And the problem with that is, when I started my project and I was telling you guys what I was doing, I wasn't paying attention and I created my sky background on my base layer. I should have created a new layer above my base transparent layer and done my sky background on that. That's gone ahead and basically destroyed my ability to have transparency on this layer as a targa. So we can fix that. Now, in most cases it would be best if you had done it the way that I should have done it and created that base transparency layer and then made all of your layers, including the sky, on top. But we can fix it. So we're going to create another 1024 by 1024 transparent background. And we're going to come back here. We're going to select that top layer. We're going to hit Control A and Control C to copy it. We're going to come back and we're going to avoid making our same mistake again by first adding a new layer in and then hitting Control V to paste that in. Snap that down to the bottom there. And now when we save this out as a targa, we're just going to overwrite that file. Keep it at 32 pixels. Now, when we bring this targa in, let's test her out. we've got our mountain targa. You can see even though it looked like a white background in that targa, which is fine, now it does work. We can put that anywhere, and we have our transparency around it. So that sets us up to have our nice mountain background in the back. I apologize again for being in a hurry and missing that, but I'm kind of glad you got to see, just in case it happens to you, you'll know how to go about fixing it. So now we'll see you in the next video.